degree. And what this has done is has impacted the overall projected finish for 2020 to a lower than it was in 2019. And then Dropbox is expected to increase just a little bit, but that's primarily due to the additional disposal, not due to the additional rates and maybe a little bit of service, but not a substantial amount. And when we met last year and the year previously, one of the issues that we were looking at was recycling and what was the impact of the recycling. And what Pride reported this year was approximately $83 per ton on recycling. And when we were looking at this stuff this morning, Eric kind of gave me a call and let me know that the $83 was probably lower than we anticipated or projected because of just some of the report anomalies. So recycling processing, even though we estimated $95, if I recall correctly, Eric, was about $103 at what they're estimating for the current year to come out on a price per ton. Other things that are going to impact rates this year and the upcoming year is the ongoing collective bargaining agreement with the Teamsters, which calls for annual CPI adjustments for the wages for the drivers. Disposal rates this year are going to increase by $4 a ton for operational costs, as well as increased taxes. The corporate activity tax in Oregon was implemented on January 1st, and that does have an impact on the disposal cost. And one of the big rate increases that's kind of looming out there, and we're not sure when it's going to happen, is Metro. And Metro had a meeting with back in July, and they were anticipating an October 1st increase, but that hasn't come to fruition yet because they're still not sure when when Metro Council is going to meet and what's the overall approval of that rate and when the implementation date's going to be. So we're kind of waiting for that increase in the regional system fee to occur. So those are kind of the events that are happening this year, which make the rate review a little bit more challenging than it has been in the past. Next slide, please. So as I was saying, the adjusted results for 2019 came in just under 8%, 7.97%, which was great because if you look at the projection and the results over the last few years, they were in the single digits, 2 and 3 and 4%. So we've been slowly climbing out of that hole. And again, this year was supposed to be the breakout year, except for the business shutdown. But taking into consideration, next slide, please. Taking into consideration all of the events that are happening, we're estimating that 2021 right now as it stands is going to come up around just under 10%. And again, there's a lot of unknowns at this point. We took what we could. We were conservative on the numbers, but we're anticipating just a little under the 10%. Next slide, please. So in order to get to the rate review, the way we set the rates, we look at what it's going to take to get all of those rates with the allowable expenses to get them at 10%. And so you saw from the last slide that residential was up just a little bit over 10%, but commercial and Dropbox were down underneath the 10%. So just looking at that slight increase for container service, we're estimating just under just a little bit over 0.5%, increase in the rates to get container service to 10%. And so the overall increase for a 2-yard collected weekly or a 6-yard collected weekly is going to be $1.14 or $2.65 for that particular service. Not a big increase at this point. Next slide, please. Dropbox service, a little bit more. The costs have increased a little bit higher than we'd like. However, the proposed increase this year is $5 per haul. If you recall, last year we did not increase the Dropbox rates. They were at a reasonable rate. However, this year we're anticipating those costs are going to get to a point where we have to adjust them slightly. So what we're doing is proposing an increase of $5 per haul on Dropbox service. Next slide, please. And these are the proposed increases for 2021, assuming that there's no increase in the regional system fee. And this is the 0.6% increase on those rates for the commercial rates. Next slide, please. Now, as I was saying, Metro is anticipating, and we can talk about this a little bit more after the slide presentation. They're anticipating rate increases over the next few years. This year, they proposed an $8.85 increase, and $3.75 of that increase would be passed down to the other transfer facilities located throughout the metro region, which includes Pride, where all the waste that's collected within the city of Sherwood is delivered. Like I said, they were anticipating October 1st implementation date. However, nothing official has come from Metro at this point, whether they're going to continue that October 1st. Most every jurisdiction is telling Metro that they should wait till next July 1st, till the start of the fiscal year, because of the uncertainty of the business shutdown, and because there are a lot of other issues that need to be adjusted or are addressed with the Metro. And so the local jurisdictions are pushing to have that rate increase coincide with the beginning of the fiscal year. What Metro does, we're not sure at this point. But they're anticipating raising the rates, as I was saying, over the next 3 to 5 years, incrementally, to increase revenue for a proposed transfer station for the west side that would be built in Cornelius. And so a lot of the details on that particular study have not been released yet. There's still a lot of questions, and I would encourage individuals on the city council to if they can, take an interest in that, because the initial price tag for that transfer station is $70 million. And the part that's concerning and this is my opinion, we've already got 3 transfer stations in the immediate west side area. We've got Pride, we've got Forest Grove, and then Hillsborough Garbage has a reload facility that also acts as a transfer. So waste right now on the west side is flowing, and it doesn't have a problem. The only need that's not being met on the west side is for self-haulers. And it doesn't take a $70 million transfer station to address the needs of the self-haulers in Washington County. It could take a facility that's anywhere from $5 to $10 million to meet that need. So the $70 million transfer station it's a palace. And in order to generate that kind of revenue to build that facility is going to see a rate increase. The other thing, too, that's going to impact that over the next 5 to 10 years is if they do build that, they're going to start pulling away tons from the other transfer stations, the one here in Sherwood for Pride and also Forest Grove. And when they do that, the rates that are going to be charged to in Sherwood are going to have to increase, and you will see increases in your garbage rates to pay for that facility that's going to be built in Cornelius. So there's a lot of ramifications for that facility being built. So that's kind of on the horizon. But anyway, as if that increase does occur between now and June 1st, at that $3.75 per ton increase in the regional system fee, we're anticipating that the impact for a 35-gallon cart customer in Sherwood would be 22 cents per customer per month. And the increase for commercial customers would be 23 cents per collected yard of garbage. So if you've got a 1-yard container and it's picked up once a week, you're generating approximately 4.33 yards of garbage a week, and so that would be approximately $1 increase to pay for the additional metro system, regional system fee. Next slide, please. If and when Metro does pass that $3.75 rate increase, the overall impact that's going to be needed, or the increase that would be passed on to the ratepayers, is included in this particular table. And the recommendation is, if that rate is adjusted and passed to the ratepayers, that the rates for residential as well as commercial be adjusted to pass that increase through. Next slide, please. And this right here is the container rates with the 2.6% increase, as well as the increased regional system fee at $3.75. Next slide, please. So right now, the next steps are, follow up with council members. If you have any questions, we'll address those and answer those as quickly as we possibly can. And hopefully by between now and September, we hear something from Metro, because if we do, then we can adjust those rates accordingly to take in consideration when that increase is going to happen. And anticipating a council vote in September, and also the rate and the rate for rates that would be effective on January 1st, 2021. Next slide. So if you have any questions for myself or for Eric or Kristen, have at it.
Kristen, this is Keith. Safe to say you guys don't think too highly of the Metro plan to build a new facility in Cornelius?
Our main concerns around that is that there was no public facility out on the west side for years, and so years ago we and other private companies invested in creating that service, and it seems misguided to duplicate those services that have been provided by private facilities for years. And to Chris's point, they could build, the demand is for the self-haul, so the people that don't want to subscribe to garbage service, they want to be able to haul their own, or the small contractors, things like that, as well as the hazardous waste, which is another service that we don't provide at our transfer station, but they could build a much smaller scaled down facility to handle that, and it would be significantly less money. Also, because Metro allocates how much waste each transfer station can accept, and right now they have a minimum of 40% between their two public facilities. We've asked them the question multiple times of, if you build a third facility, is that minimum of 40% going to go up to 60%? And they haven't given an answer. They have not given a direct answer to that question, but it will, as Chris said, impact all of our waste allocation, and the cost of our facility that we just got a Metro grant to expand is not going to change if we have less tons. We'll just have less tons to spread across those costs. Also, it will impact the community enhancement grants that the city gives out, because we pay $1 a ton for every ton that comes through our facility, and every ton that we're not allowed to accept will reduce that by $1. So generally, no, not a fan.
Have they created an analysis report to defend a staff recommendation if we ask for it?
I am not sure if that work is complete. I don't know if Chris knows the answer to that.
The interesting part of that question is the city of Hillsborough has been very boisterous, and they want the supporting documentation on how they're arriving at the rate calculations and the costs, and Metro has not given that to the city staff at Hillsborough. And as Kristen was saying, you've got facilities on the east side who've also invested money in their own facilities. Gresham Sanitary and City of Roses are two transfer stations that have been built and or expanded over the last 2 years, and city members from the east side are pretty adamant too, because they don't want to pay for a west side transfer station when they've had private money that has contributed to their infrastructure on the east side. So there are not a lot of fans at the local level for this facility. It seems to me that from what I've read, that Metro council members love it, and Metro staff likes it, but there's not been a lot of I don't think a lot of desire or a need for a large transfer station. What they're talking $70 million, especially on the west side. Metro can spend their money a lot more wisely.
Has there been any public? Have they gone through any outreach process with different haulers and the public on this proposed bill?
Well, I understand that they've put together initial task force with some people in Cornelius who would be impacted, and elements of this, what they're supposed to be doing, is outlined in the Metro Solid Waste Management Plan. But if you read that plan, it's not a typical solid waste management plan where here are the tons, here are the needs, here's what we're going to do. It's more of a social justice document on how they're going to expand opportunities to minorities. And part of this outreach effort that they're doing in Cornelius is primarily mostly minorities. I know that there's a lot of people on this, the project committees, and some don't even speak English, to be frank, that are deciding on this, but yet the industry and the cities who are going to be impacted, from what I understand, are not really represented. So I'm not sure where this process is going. I know that an individual from Waste Management, which would probably get would have most of their tons pulled from their transfer station, because you're not going to drive past Cornelius to disposal tons to Forest Grove, so they'll probably take most of Waste Management's tons, which, from an operational point of view makes sense, but if you're Waste Management, you invested a lot of money in your transfer station, they would be really put in a bad position because they got an impaired asset.
And besides the community outreach that Chris mentioned, the only other committee or anything like that I'm aware of that they brought it to is Metro has a regional waste advisory committee that meets it's this Thursday, so what is that, the third Thursday of the month, every morning at 8 a.m. and it kind of is their solid waste advisory committee they used to have and has evolved into this, and there's one industry representative on a committee of about 13 people. And then about half of the rest of them are local governments. Like Oswego is represented, Clackamas County, City of Portland. I know there's a couple of others I'm missing. And then there's also some community members that make up basically the other half of that committee. But they don't vote on things. It's just information sharing more than anything.
Another wrinkle, I just got my email from the County Board of Commissioners about their next meeting, and there's a work session at the County Board of Commissioners on the 25th, and this topic's going to be discussed. And there's some materials from Metro, and it is truly a Taj Mahal when you look at what they want to build. It's an expensive transfer station.
A lot better ways
Cindy?
to use your money.
Cindy?
Go ahead, Cindy.
A group from Metro came out to the Washington County Haulers meeting. Kristen wasn't at that meeting, but they came out and gave their presentation. It may be the same thing that they're going to give to the Board of Commissioners, and it's pictures and of all the different facilities that they've visited around the Northwest. One that's up in the Seattle area that has a beautiful viewing deck, and it's right in a downtown area, and you wouldn't even know that there's a transfer station there, and it's, to excuse the words, but it's a dog and pony show. And we asked lots of questions about how it's going to impact the different transfer stations, and the answer, we'll take that into advisement, but it might even be something that they could come out and give their same presentation to the Sherwood Council, and you could ask them questions about their plan.
Keith, is this on in the Metro Mayor's radar?
Not yet. It's going to be.
As we're saying, this is, as Cindy was saying, $70 million Taj Mahal. The same engineers and architects that developed some of those really expensive ones for King County and for the city of Seattle are also working in collaboration with the Clark County, and we've spec'd out a transfer station that'll handle up to 200,000 tons of material in Clark County, and its price tag is about $30 million. And that's a complete brand new facility versus $70 million for this facility that they would build out in Cornelius.
Okay.
Do they have aspirations, or the contractors exploded that thing? Or the
Sorry,
architect?
government and regional government needs to take into account the impact to the everyday person and the rate payers, and to jack rates just because they can really pisses me off.
So if they don't, Chris and Kristen, if they don't institute this fee, which October is right around the corner, what does that mean for rates? Could Could we
Well, one of the
adopt
things-
rates that won't have increases as of January 1st? Can we talk about that a little bit?
One of the things I was going to suggest is because Metro Council's on recess all of August, so I think it's very unlikely that we would know in September what they're going to do. I would recommend that we potentially push bringing it back to council until October, because we should at least have a better general idea of if they're going to do something in January or wait until July, and then we don't have to play the what if game. At least there would be, and that would still be plenty of time if there was a rate increase enacted for us to get notices out to customers and, update our billing system and all of that. So that would be my suggestion, if council is agreeable to that.
My preference would be to wait as well. Especially, we don't want to send any signals that we're planning for that increase. I mean, we would be fighting that increase, if anything.
Right. There should be maybe a resolution on an August or September council meeting voicing concern about opposition to a new transfer station in the near term. Of anything more than a little postage stamp.
Yeah, and I think to answer your other question, if there is no Metro increase, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, the proposal is a small increase on commercial customers and the increase on the haul fee for Dropbox of around $5, but no increase on residential.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. So before we talk about glass, any other rate questions for Chris or our folks from Pride?
Not at this point.
Nope.
Hearing none. Christian, do you want to talk about glass recycling and what Metro was up to, and then they backed off, but what you talked about, potentially a change in the future?
Sure. So Metro is doing some administrative rule updates that I know we don't have time to get into all of them, so I'll stick to the glass conversation, but one of them was to mandate glass has to be picked up at least every other week as of July 2022, which would have impacted Sherwood, Tigard, and Durham, which are the 3 jurisdictions in the region that have monthly glass. And so we were internally, knowing this was coming, kind of making the jurisdictions we work with aware of that, including Sherwood, and contemplating how we could potentially do that with minimal impact to the ratepayers, because it would be doubling that service. And we're currently, I just saw a prototype today built out of cardboard. Our fab shop is looking at building some, basically, we would add a container onto our automated trucks to be able to collect glass on our automated trucks rather than in a separate vehicle, which would allow us to move to every other week glass with minimal to no cost increases to customers. So Metro has since pulled back on that requirement that they were planning on putting in place to require everybody to go to every other week, but we also recognize that monthly glass has always been kind of a confusing and somewhat frustrating point for our customers, and if we can increase that service without increasing rates, then let's look at doing that. So our proposal would be that we have to have some time to modify our trucks, make route changes, send out notices, but that we think no later than April 1st of next year, we would be able to change that frequency of service. If we can get it done earlier, we'll get it done earlier, but our goal would be to get it done and changed, increased by April 1st.
What's the problem that Metro's trying to solve?
Right.
I mean, we use the Recycle Day app, and I've never had an issue of knowing what I got to put out on what day. You know.
So Metro did a study a couple of years ago. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I'll be a jerk in a minute.
They did a study that was based on how much, based on all the different frequencies in the region. So if you have every other week recycling versus weekly, monthly glass versus weekly, every other week, how much recyclables end up in the garbage, which in theory means people don't have enough service, or how much garbage ends up in the recycling, which could address, for example, every other week garbage in Portland, where there's always contamination issues. So based on that study, they determined that jurisdictions that had monthly glass had more glass in the garbage, which would lead one to believe that it's because they're not getting enough service or they can't figure out when to put their glass out, and so they just throw it away rather than recycle it. So that was the motivation behind that change.
And I'm sure their study would have some
So my 10 cents is I do not believe or would support the notion that Metro has any influence on our level of service in our community. It is completely a community discussion and evaluation, and there is where I start and end my thoughts on that.
I agree.
We make that argument to Metro pretty consistently. What Metro would say is that their regional waste plan, which they write, allows them the authority to dictate minimum service standards. And that's what they would be updating, would be that minimum service standard of glass.
Yeah. So,
And that's a local government
Yeah,
Metro fight, ultimately.
exactly. It's nothing to do with pride.
A
I
weekly.
completely ignore what you're about to say when it comes to garbage. So they can decide how much they want to charge per ton to fill their coffers. As long as our community is happy.
Are you saying that at Metro it's garbage in, garbage out?
You said that, not me. But they are addicted to their tonnage.
So the reason, besides bringing you up to date on what Metro is up to, I think Kristen has said the idea of twice a month glass, would the council be supportive of that if it's driven locally and it doesn't have an impact on rates? That was ultimately the question. I didn't want to speak on your behalf. My sense is that you would be supportive, but I didn't necessarily.
I'm not sold.
Yeah.
I'll listen to the argument, but what I hear is a fourth roll cart.
No, it would still be in a bin. Sorry if that wasn't clear. We'd be adding a container to the back of the truck that the driver would get out, bring to the back of the truck, and dump. So it would not be a fourth roll cart. That would be ideal, but a much more difficult ask.
Because I would be returning the bin or the cart and not having it on my property would be my solution. So
Issues too, and with the community, why are we doing this? Especially if there's any kind of rate increase associated with it. Some folks I've talked to, they'd rather see our cardboard go to once a week and glass go to twice a week, which I wouldn't propose that either, because that would be an increase in cost. But I don't even know how you sell to the community. So.
Councilor Young, looks like you have your hand up.
Sorry.
Yes, I was being polite. I had to get in there between Tim and Keith. So just so I'm clear, if you put that thing on the back of the truck, so it's going to force the driver to get out of the truck, physically lift the thing, dump it, kind of like the old garbage days.
Yes, but that is actually how we currently pick up glass. That is the one piece of our collection that is still manual. So they'd be getting out of a different truck with a higher step than our stand-up drive glass trucks are, but ultimately we already have to get out for that material.
Okay.
Yeah.
They'd be doing it. They'd be doing it every week instead of every other week, and it would be part of their regular route. So presumably, that would slow down the route significantly compared to now.
Yeah, it would be every other week instead of monthly, but we would also be taking the glass trucks, the trucks that only pick up glass, off the road.
Right.
So there'd be a savings there for the slower collection by adding it to the other route type.
Yeah.
Okay. Definitely something to look at.
okie doke. Anything else for the good of the order for this conversation?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank
Mike,
you.
Cindy, Kristen, great to see you.
Love the app.
You as well.
There is some value to this whole Zoom thing, Teams thing. You guys can check in from
Sit
home,
outside
get back to watching the
in
game.
fun.
Yeah, I don't have to
Well,
drive
users
home to
enjoy
make
the
it home
game.
by third quarter. Thank you all.
Appreciate
Thank you
all
guys
your
for all you do.
Good job.
So we're going to drop off this and come back on an exec session.
Yeah,
Bye.
Okay.
we're adjourned for the work session.